We'll let this fire up and then we'll try to figure out what's going on. So, Pete, are you?
I'm broadcasting. We just went on air.
So, welcome everybody. We're going to run this VM that I've not run in a long time, so I have no idea what's here. Oh, here we go. Let me see if I can quickly do settings. And let me try theme. And I'll have to follow. Oh, let's do this. Let's
Well, no, I like to play it.
that does not look good.
What's the point in being retired if you can't play that voice?
Colors.
Oh, it's slower than the last.
Oh, wait. Oh, you've got it set for pixie too, that's why. You've got it set for pixie too, that's why. And then
In network interfaces, you have DHCP set as your developed networks, so the system will wait for DHCP lease before continuing to boot.
I just want to ask that nice little 60-second crash.
It's when it comes up in the second 60 seconds.
That's when it sucks.
But
I look a little better.
this is rather like Dr. John's.
All right. So, first of all, we can't find the switch to turn off the lights. That's why we're fighting. That can make it bigger yet still, the text bigger if we need. So, a couple things going on. One, thank you everybody for making it out today. As Mr. Anderson let me know, it has been 3 months since I've been here, so I apologize for those who were here earlier. They've heard all of my woes that 6 out of the last 7 weekends I drove up to Brooklyn, and the one weekend I did not drive up to Brooklyn, I was in Boston for a 100th birthday party for my great aunt. So, what do you need, Jack?
Light switch.
Does that light switch work?
I don't know. It's worth a try. Switch.
No, the switch outside.
Regular switch.
Right
next to you.
Hit the master breaker, that'll turn on.
Yeah.
Actually, I was
There is
thinking
no,
that.
we like Jack, there's no way to deal with lights. So I am here this week. We did have a topic this month, so it's sort of a, let's do everybody share. So I don't know if anybody else is willing to come up here and talk, the show, to share any information. But in a minute, what I will do is start creating a list here of topics and areas of interest, so we can have people speak. I believe the next 2 months are booked. One is on IPv6, the other is Docker, if I remember correctly. I exchanged quickly some email with Jason, and my understanding is they have a new space. My understanding is the new space is extremely large, and there is a very high possibility that it will be ready for us next month. So,
And it's beautiful. We took us on
It
tour
is.
of last year.
last month.
Yeah.
Is it just to
Yeah,
up there?
it's right across the street on the other side of Isaac, over by that Montessori school. Literally, if you come out here, go right across,
Oh, it's over there, okay. So it's on the other side of Sunset Hills. So when you come out of the stoplight here,
Literally,
at
so
Sunset
right
Hills,
across the street,
to the left a little bit, Catamount.
no, literally, right across.
So you go to
So
Isaac
literally,
Newton
you
Square.
go right through the intersection.
It's in Isaac Newton Square then.
Yes, all the way to back, right there along the golf course.
The left wing building facing the golf course, and it's gorgeous.
So interesting.
Google Maps.
That was not the one that they were trying to get, so that's interesting about that one instead.
It's like 3 times the size of this building.
Well, I know it's huge, but they had a place that was much, much bigger that I had actually looked at 5 years ago for my failed art business. That was a printing shop, and that's basically right by the Whole Foods. So it's just down, it's where ICE or someone just built
Well,
a
that's
facility.
supposed to be, Madison area.
So actually, for those who don't know, that's where the original Ebola breakout was here in the States, was right across the street at Isaac Newton, at the new space at NovaLUG. So.
That's reassuring, thank you.
Throw a map up on the
Yeah.
screen, so we can see where it is. We have
Well,
those that haven't been replicated for the last
Yeah.
14 years.
So, yeah, I think the movie's Outbreak was the name of the movie. But, so those who do not know, the Ebola in the States was literally right across the street here. That's where they had the lab that had the thing.
Let's just call it hemorrhagic fever.
Whatever you would like. Evil, my understanding, my recollection is it's very much for those who read the book The Stand by Stephen King. It's a similar type of, that's called catching trips in that book, but the disease is. Anyway, so yes, we're going to be moving to Ebola Central. If that does not work out, a member has let us know about another possible space that may work in the Tyson's area. So we'll figure that out as the month progresses. My guess is it sounds like things are looking very good for us staying here. I have no problem staying here now that the metro is open. That should help solve some of the problems that people were complaining about, that the meetings were not metro accessible. For those who have not rode the metro, it's pretty good. I've ridden it way too many times already. It's just expensive is my biggest complaint about it. And then my second complaint is it should go really, really fast from not Greensboro,
Spring Hill.
Spring Hill, from Spring Hill to here. It should do 100 miles an hour, but it does 15, so I get a little disappointed. It's still low.
But it's up to 70.
That's it.
Yeah, I clocked it.
You must have been on the beach.
I just turned on ways to see how fast we're.
But it's still only.
There's one stretch, 71, 72 miles an hour, somewhere around the bend, it starts to merge with.
Maybe you're in a time warp.
Oh, well, yeah, over there, yeah, I'm talking about this, the tail end.
Oh, I understand that.
That's the part I care about.
But it's only 5 minutes anyway.
No, it's not.
I did it this morning.
Well, so it has never been 5 minutes when I've ridden it.
Back to our ball.
The number of times I've had to stop during that stretch, the train stops. But anyway, from here to Metro Center, which is where you make the change to the red line, to get to Union Station is 40 minutes, plus or minus 1. So it's not super fast. In rush hour, it's faster than driving. In non-rush hour, it's twice the time. But
Makes absolutely no sense.
anyway, yeah, well, it's because you got to stop and the merging and the rest. But anyway, it is a pretty nice thing, and I'm happy that the metro is here, because when I sell my house in 2.5 years, I'm hoping it'll be a 10% bump in the price of my house. So,
Oh, by the way, apropos the Ebola, it puts a different spin on the term bugs.
yes, it does. So,
Okay, great.
yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, one of the other things is mailing list. So, who here is on the new mailing list? Raise your hand.
Inshallah.
Okay, a couple people are not on the new mailing list.
No, actually, I don't know.
To get on the new mailing list, you need to send email to NovaLUG-request@firemountain.net. In the subject and in the body, put the word subscribe. You will get an email back. You hit all to reply. You will then be added and get a welcome to the list. The list is now off moderation, so we should see posts coming through as of this morning. We have not done the full cutover. The full cutover will be happening shortly. And I don't think Rich is here, because I haven't met Rich, and I don't think I've met him in place, and I don't think he, I don't even know where he lives, somewhere on the internet.
You like scotch though, so give him a scotch for,
We'll see. We'll see how it works out.
He's reserving the scotch.
So, Rich and I have had a lot of off-list conversations. Things are going well. I have, just like everything else, as I hit my 20 plus years of doing stuff, I'm I'm tired of doing everything, so I'm definitely in the delegation mode. Richard signed up to deal with the list and manage that. I may be back on that. I told him I'm happy to be his backup if he would like. If he doesn't want to give me access, I'm cool with that also. So there are a couple things, and once the list gets going, we'll see how the things work out. He is okay and is fine, as with most people who've been doing things for 3 or 4 decades. Everybody has their own way of doing things, and as long as everybody is respectful in their discussions, I really don't care, and I can modify my behavior to the host. So that's where the list is right now. We'll give it a try for a couple months, see, and if there is a great outpouring that things are much different than how people want, we'll go from there to determine if we do or do not make changes. So talked about the new space, talked about the next couple of meetings, talked about mailing list. Anything else that people wanted to bring up as sort of general announcements, non-technical questions? Yes.
I want to recognize the value of being in this group, because my brother and John's friend had problems with Windows passwords. Now, they're the enemy. However,
No one's an enemy.
well,
They're uninvited.
put it in quotes. But the point is that many people have generously shared their knowledge, even though it's Windows, to help out. And this is really a great community. I told my brother this morning on the way out here, I said, you know how lucky you are. He was talking about going down the street and hiring somebody to fix the computer. I said, they're not going to know. They're going to tell you to reinstall Windows. I'm drawing on the brain power that powers the computer world out here, in the Dulles area. So hang loose in that. But really, it's a great group.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you. So as I had said before, this is sort of this month. We didn't have a topic. No one stood up who could make it and wanted to speak who had not spoken very recently, and I wanted to give the opportunity for a couple of things. And before I do that, I just remember John has a box. Is your box gone? Did someone take it off?
No, it's down there in the back. I'm around to the front. I got a box of stuff. I'm getting rid of a lab that I've been using for almost 20 years now, so there's a lot of odds and ends in there. Keyboards, weird sensors for all sorts of interesting stuff. I'm getting rid of it to make a nursery, so I have no place for this stuff.
The PS2 keyboards.
Those already got taken.
I've got one at home.
Oh, you do? Okay.
It's in the bedroom.
That was last year.
I may have one. I'll have to check. I'm sure I have one. Because I think I'm very low on USB. I think I only have one USB. I think I'm on 2. But what I wanted to do was a couple of things. One, if anybody has a laptop or wants to use some version of Fedora that's installed in the VM right now to show anything, they're welcome to do that. If anybody has any questions, what I want to do is get a list of questions up here that we can start responding to, answering, sharing information. So, and if anybody's online, I'm assuming Pete will watch and he'll raise his hand and say someone online. So.
7 people there now.
Anybody we recognize? Any of our all-time favorites? Let's go get a
A
chance.
couple guys from a couple of the mid forums as well, just because I am always putting up the link as well,
Okay, great.
both in Fedora and Linux Mint's channels in the IRC as well. So
Excellent.
there's a couple I recognize in there, but
Excellent. Well, welcome. So with that, what I will do is we'll go around. Is there anybody out here who would like to come up and plug in and share something?
Getting a little closer to you. I hope you don't mind.
What's your name? I'm sorry.
I'm Simon.
Simon?
Yep.
All right, Simon, what are you going to show us today?
CA Troops, and
I'm not
CA Troops
worried about using it.
Okay.
That's my bad.
Anybody else want to come up and plug in and share anything? Come on, please. It's going to be a very short meeting, which may mean I have to drive to Chesapeake, and I really don't want to drive to Chesapeake, so I need to make sure we fill this up.
At various times you said, present something, and then you said questions.
Yeah, we're going to get the questions in a moment.
That's 2 separate categories.
That's correct.
It's my
That's
birthday party
correct.
tonight, so I can't be too late.
All right, so question.
IRC.
I'm sorry?
IRC.
IRC, Internet Relay Chat, what about it? What is it?
For the cool kids
How
are.
does it work? Is it really useful?
No, nothing's useful.
Oh my god. This computer thing, it's a fad. This computer thing, it's a fad.
Email encryption, how to take advantage of what we did at the key signing party on the street.
Ah,
I'll expand later.
okay. Jerry?
What happened to Usenet?
The next question is,
Called Pong.
what is Usenet?
And,
Okay.
Who remembers these?
What was?
oh, binary postings.
So, I'm sorry, say that again?
We use a virtual box host.
Okay.
I use USB stick.
Welcome to extension packs. Can't do USB without it.
So,
And the second one is, has anybody heard of or used Network D?
Network D?
Apparently the replacement for Network Manager is System D.
Okay.
That's mostly BSD, but I don't know a whole terrible.
Yeah, Network Manager is still in RHEL 7. Oh, yes.
Yeah, RHEL 7's,
Yeah.
man, we're talking for 420. Talking about something that actually, gets updated more than once every 3 years. So, yeah.
I would say 21 actually goes community live in about 2 months.
Yeah, I knew we were trying to know what the status of 21 was. It's been a while since we updated, so that's why I didn't.
Well, I've got half of 21 sitting on my box right now, so.
All right, buddy. Other questions? Yes?
Dual displays in browsing. With browsing, I'll explain what the hell it means later. It's a simple question.
Okay,
Sorry?
other questions? Nope.
I've got an app that I'm trying to get up, and when I plug in the GPS receiver, it tells me that the COM port is being used by another application, and yet that's the only thing that's on there, and I wanted to know how that works.
You probably want to look at a command called LSOF. That should probably help with that. Right? Is everybody going to go, yeah, that sounds right, Greg? Or is there another way to do it? I mean, that's the first thing. To figure out who's using the COM.
It's most likely TTY that's set up.
Two supplier PT.
Yep, okay. Good, my technical knowledge still exists somewhat. Peter?
I'm interested in knowing if you have,
Label that.
a logging solution for your company, agency, enterprise, yourself, whether it's Graylog 2, or ArcSysLog, or ELK,
Or Swamp?
or Heroinware, or the like. I'd be interested in having a discussion about what you're using. I have to report something for a client, I'm just looking at my choices.
Okay. Excellent. So we've gone through questions. We've got some questions and some things that will generate some discussion, it looks like. Anybody besides Simon on this side decide they want to show something or share something?
I can help out a little bit with the IRC stuff as well as the VM. But as far as actually trying to add anything to it, I'll try to. There we go.
All right. So with that, Simon, why don't you come on up? And I will let you plug in and share. And the screen will go blank here for a minute.
Pretty much cover any of those up there, so whatever you guys want to do.
The one on the IRC.
Yeah, I'll check it out when I see it's,
That's actually also
Great.
Yes.
There's a notable file as well.
System.
Systems. That has actually, that takes him to do the whole, on that part.
I mean, I can cover IRC. I've been on IRC since the 80s. So, I mean, it depends on what the actual question
He's trying to say he's new to IRC.
Then we just stick to it, not good.
Yeah, I was on it before there was something called browsing.
So what was Veronica like?
How did you get the punch cards used in the chat?
Yeah, it was tough.
works. So, I have a virtual machine running.
So who are you?
I'm Simon. Simon Almayer. I'm from Ashburn. I work at Black Mesh, which is just down Route 7. What I have running right now is a virtual machine which has Debian installed on the hard drive, but I'm booted off of a live CD. So what I'll do first of all, and I don't have the screen mirroring turned on, so I'll be looking over my shoulder. The text readable at this size.
It's not on the video, but it will not be on the video with all this light in here, so don't worry about it. Even that may help a bit, but people online, tell me if you can read it, but.
It's looking halfway.
Oh, are you able to join the Hangout from that machine? That's actually a good point. That's your box, right?
Yeah.
Are you on the wireless here? Or
Yeah.
Okay, then you should be able to go to Google Plus. You need to be signed on to Google Plus to do that. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I'll join the Hangout for mine, but yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I always forget it, that it's a good thing to have the presenter join that way, that that screen becomes available.
Yep.
Okay. So most live CDs, this one happens to be Phoenix, which is based on Debian, but most of them, whether it's Knoppix or Ubuntu or Fedora, most install disks are live CDs now anyway, will give you the option for mounting existing disks in your Linux system. So I'm going to go poking around on the Linux installation that's on the hard disk from a virtual machine. So
I'm going to break all the security guidelines we have, like, to show a point.
Okay, using a magical command called chroot.
Want to give a quick what a chroot does?
So what I'm doing right now is chroot will transplant the, it'll change the context of running processes so that their file system is based in a subdirectory instead of being based in the actual root of the operating system. So I suppose I should first show you that, well, you can't see very much on the display right now, but that is a listing of the actual file system from my hard drive in the virtual machine.
Type unalias space ls. Not doing ls. Or ls, whatever you find. So by default under Linux, ls has color turned on. So if you just do an unalias ls, it will remove all the magic and it will be old school for 40 years of Linux ls.
All black and white.
And I'm zoomed in, so it's cutting off some file names.
So now to get back. Sounds like a good idea to have.
Go ahead and
Yeah, just rerun your
LS again.
Yeah, or rerun your .hashrc in your profile.
Export color equals and unset it.
You just wait, log out, log back in. That way you won't forget.
Good point.
So I'm looking at the directory that has my Linux installation. So if someone mentioned they forgot a Windows password on the mailing list, if you, in theory, forgot a Linux password, one of the interesting applications of chroot is you can gain access to this Linux installation as root
without needing a root password reset.
Yes. So we can chroot into the disk which contains our file system, and now in the root folder we are still looking at the same set of files that we were before. And if we wanted to reset a password for an account, we can just do that. So if I wanted to set the root password, I can do that. Root password has been changed, and if we were to exit this stage root and then reboot, we find that the root password's been changed.
I love how this demonstrates that if you lose physical security over your boxes, you've lost all security.
So he's broken
That's why
similar
we-
security guidelines.
Unless you've encrypted your.
No, no, he's just proving that you don't need
They just
to.
went past it.
Technically, if it is encrypted, you still have to have the encryption password for the hard drive or that.
Well, he's
If
already,
it started from power off.
Yeah.
If it didn't start from power off, and you can get around everything.
Pre-boot authentication. is only-
Anything you have
That's how it is.
that will give you a root prompt, will give you a root prompt. So whether that's a live CD or just physically taking the hard drive out and plugging it into a different machine.
That rule also applies, by the way, for those of you in enterprise land where you've got HP boxes or Dell boxes with idle and rack. If you do remote root CDs for booting, which means you don't actually need physical access to the host anymore. You just need access to the out-of-band configurations to be able to go launch something off your local machine and have it boot remotely.
I'm about to do something silly.
Oh, dear God.
Like being here.
No.
Explain what you're doing.
What I'm going to do right now is wipe out the
The boot
master
record.
boot record on this virtual machine. And I'm going to fix it.
Inshallah.
We hope.
What's the file system?
Okay. So the boot record lives outside of the file system. It's the first thing that a regular BIOS will read when trying to boot from a machine. If I were to reboot this machine and let it start up normally, it would come back with a very unhappy error message. Take a few seconds to do that. So at this point, there we go. Fail.
Oh, I've seen that one before.
This is also helpful if you happen to install another operating system on the drive and you'd like to get your Linux bootloader back.
Also known as the white line of death.
So I'm just going to plug in my live CD again and let me just reset this. So booting from my live CD again, and move it back over. Back in Phoenix. Now, the master boot record, I was very careful when I deleted stuff, that I didn't delete the information that describes what file systems are actually on the disk. So
That's why it was 448, not 512.
Yes, that was why it was 448 and not 512. So I can still mount SDA. So I didn't actually delete or clobber any of the files in there. Now, we have to add a few additional things to the CH root. There are other file systems, mostly virtual file systems, that Linux has that are required for doing operations on physical disks, for instance, on reading information about the running system. Those are, let's mount. Bind lets you transplant, the bind option for mount lets you duplicate a portion of the file system in another location. So I'm just going to bind mount dev into media SDA1 dev. I'm going to do the same for sys. And the same for proc.
In that order.
The order does not matter for these.
As long as all three are there, it does not matter. As long as the root file system is already mounted prior. In this case, SDA1.
So when I chroot,
You may also, if you have other mount points, if you have more than just a root file system, you may also want to mount those before you do C.
and this machine happens to only have one partition. If the machine you're working on has, say, home as a separate partition, if you wanted to access home, you would have to mount home in its appropriate location on the root file system if you wanted to deal with files there. I'm now in
So does this mean that you really should be working with the root file directory? Does that have to be there?
For fixing grub, like I'm doing now, yes, you'll need boot. In this case, grub is on the same partition as root, so I don't have to do anything additional.
If you are doing the LVM, you have to explicitly mount root file.
And if you find which one the root file system is, you can look at /etc/fstab, and you'll get a convenient list of what you will need to mount to get the system functional. But I'm going to grub install onto dev SDA. I had to mount dev for the chroot so that this command would find the disk and be able to work with it. Installation finished, no error reported. So now, if I reboot, it should come up in a functioning state. And there's the happy bootloader for Debian, like the virtual machine is supposed to be. Hooray! We did
Does it work with LVM?
Yes, whatever live CD you're using will usually expose the LVM virtual drives. Elsewhere in dev, you'll have similar mechanisms for mounting LVM devices also.
For an LVM, it'll actually show up as dev mapper and then the name of your actual host name dash root home, whatever else you may have.
And you were both 64? You changed root to 64-bit?
Yes. You can use a 64-bit live CD to access a 32-bit operating system, but not vice versa. It just matters what kernel you're running. The 64-bit kernels are capable of running 32-bit software also.
Is that legacy grub only? Or?
In that case, that was grub 2.
Just name grub.
Other neat tricks one can do.
If you do need legacy boot, though, you do have to do grub legacy dash install in order for it to actually take the old school grub.
Okay. So, I have a lot of fancy colors, hopefully. So I just got done talking about how the kernel version matters. You can't just go chrooting into operating system directories or disks that are incompatible with your kernel. There's a little asterisk to that, and I'll show that now. First of all, I have in this directory a disk image for Raspbian, which is an operating system for Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi uses an ARM CPU, which is very, very different from the Intel chip that's in my laptop. I extracted the files from this by one option is you could put it on an SD card and literally copy the files onto the file system. You can do this from the SD card itself. We can do a. All right, I have a little bit of a fancier command here using a relatively new utility called proot. Proot performs many of the same functions as chroot, but streamlines the process. For instance, the capital Q option for proot will automatically add bind mounts, like the few that I had to do for the recovery, but all in one convenient place. It'll bind mount your home directory, it'll bind mount all of those more obscure places. It'll give you access to the running system from inside the chroot also. The other interesting bit is the QEMU ARM static. QEMU was mentioned was a topic at Nova at the Linux Users Group meetup a couple months ago, QAMU has, in addition to a full system virtualization and emulation platform, it has a translator. You can translate individual programs into the environment that you're running. There are plenty of ARM programs on a Raspberry Pi, everything is, and QAMU will translate those so that they can run on an x86. It does this live by emulating the chip. So, now I'm in the Raspbian environment. And as far as the shell is concerned, I'm not actually running an Intel chip. I'm running an ARM CPU. The environment that QAMU provides will emulate or lie as much as it needs to get ARM programs working. QAMU has these emulators, translators available for a wide variety of computer architectures.
Had a comment online. It says that all the Live CD has to be able to do is to support the hardware and file system they're using, and so you can sort of mix and match, I guess is the point. As long as there's support within the Live CD for whatever you have in hardware.
Yes, absolutely. And the other interesting thing you can do with the chroot is anything that runs the Linux kernel and is capable of giving you a root prompt and the chroot command will also work. So, this is my Android tablet. I have it right here. I'm getting a shell by using ADB shell. You can do this from a terminal emulator on the tablet itself. You will need some way to gain access to a file system for Linux. Most newer Android devices actually have an ext4 partition running the internal storage. There's a big garble of text there. It's not going to show up very well. But
Run an SE on Raspberry.
I have a set of helper scripts that actually runs the series of commands for setting up the chroot and jumping in. But now I'm running Debian on an Android device with all of the niceties that come with a Debian installation. So I can, if I'm on the Wi-Fi, I am. Okay, update. All of the utilities available in a standard Linux installation are available on the command line on an Android device, as long as you set up the file system for it ahead of time.
As root.
Yeah, I'm running these commands as root. You'll need to root your Android device. proot has some limited ability to provide chroot functionality if you're not root, but to do anything serious like updating packages and the like, you'll need a root prompt. You can also run, for instance, VNC. VNC will give you a graphical interface, which you can then connect to on your Android device and have graphical Linux applications available on Android also. That's about all I wanted to talk about dealing with the chroot command. Any questions?
Very interesting. I think a lot of this would be useful for other people to have in their little kit. But we won't be able to remember all of it. There's a section on NovaLUG.com that has little tricks and trade bash code or whatever. Would you consider bringing up some of this and putting it over there?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to have a comment. I have done several rescues and taking advantage, just in a graphical environment, being able to access file systems on hard drives that people, their computer doesn't work anymore. To pull it off, stick an external adapter, run Novix and, or other distributions really, and pull stuff off the disk rescue. You can outbridge anything. The comment you made about
Physical security?
yeah, I mean, how do you get around that? You know,
Once you have physical access to a box, there is no security.
Yeah.
And you just-
All security is
So I
not
put on
physical.
myself.
Is anyone here familiar with the company Server Vault?
Yep.
Right? So this is literally where you store your servers if you're really worried about server security. It's a vault. There's a multi-step process to get to an actual rack. Individual groups of racks are locked up in different places, you know. I mean, they do everything, keep physical access very hard to get to. Even their fiber lines are armored going from the vault to your trunks. You know?
Well, I'm gonna step back from that, where I thought I had security because I encrypted my home partition. And I have to worry about people at the border taking care of taking my stuff, but no.
At best, you're just delaying.
What?
At best, encryption is a matter of delay.
You can steal the gold in Fort Knox, it just takes a lot of effort. That's all security ever is, it's just price of entry.
But my understanding was with SC Linux, you could put policies back.
That is correct.
It is correct, but you most times need MLC, which is actually not default enabled in SC Linux.
Well, it's a policy.
None of
you
that
can install.
applies if
You're
you're booted off of a live CD, for instance.
I think the only system that actually has really good protection there is the OpenBSD, which has actually locked down the read-only access.
Everything starts
Everything. Yeah.
So Zach was going to, and I don't see Zach here, Zach was going to bring one of his Raspberry Pi, and I totally forgot to grab.
Plus, no less.
Yeah, I forgot to grab one of my Pis that is sitting in the house.
Three calendars may have some.
Sorry?
Three calendars may have some.
Greg, what are you using the Raspberry Pis for?
So, I bought them because they were $25 or $30, and I said, why not? And then it cost me another $5, €3.50 or whatever to get the, or pounds, however they sell them, I can't remember now, to get the codecs. So I wasn't sure what I was going to use the Pi when I bought it for. And for the last 8-9 years, I've been working with this guy on a Myth TV solution. And I think he's finally at the point that he's happy with what we're doing because I've just rebuilt it from scratch. Every 2 or 3 years he has to rebuild it. But one of the things we were looking at is, so he wants to have a server in the house, and I'll leave out all the specifics, but then have clients, right? So there'll be Myth TV clients running out there. And looking at, the Zotac or one of these other tiny little boxes was great and wonderful, but they're still a couple $100 a pop. But if I can run it off a Raspberry Pi for, call it $50, right, for a case, for the power, for everything that you need, then it becomes, okay, I just dropped the price of my solution immensely, right? I'm actually running 12, I actually have 12 tuners hooked up to one single physical server. So I want to have 12 front ends being able to connect and watch and tune.
Which was normally cost you $300-400?
$35.
What do you mean, 300 or 400 what?
I mean, hardware one.
Oh, hardware, I mean, we'll stay out of the price. Basically, what so if you're looking at, let's call it, $250 a box, just to make the math easy, it's $3,000 for the front ends, okay? Instead of $300 for the front ends, right? So it's an order of magnitude less at this point. So there are a number of different, now I forgot, XBMC changed their name this week. Does anybody know what they changed it to? Some crazy thing. Kobe? Kobe, yeah, that sounds right. And I forget, at one point I read what it meant. But so XBMC stood for Xbox Media Center. So someone had written some magic so that you could do all this fun stuff on your Xbox. Soon got ported to every other device. and kept the name XBMC, just because that's what it was known as. So there are a couple of XBMC
So, Greg, the
Yes,
Raspberry Pi is driving the television and accessing a server.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that in a second.
But the video, how do you handle the video?
So I'll talk about that in a second.
Is it coming out through the HDMI port?
Well, yeah, so just give me a second. I'm trying to Raspberry Pi XBMC. Problem, let me do this way. There are a number, maybe this one will show me. Yeah. So I'm actually using XPN. So there are 3 main ones that you can see here, and that better? So you have OpenELEC, which is when I first started running. I tried this at one point, didn't work too well. Tried XPN, and this one works pretty well. I think this is what I'm using. So if you stop and think on, for those who don't know on a Raspberry Pi, you have 2 USB ports, you have a composite video, you have HDMI, and you have Ethernet for your input output. So what I have done is on the 2 USBs, I have a wireless, and I think I found wireless for under $10 that's well supported out of the box for that. A USB keyboard, and then I use HDMI to handle my hooking up to my TV or to my media center.
So is the decoding taking place in the basement? Oh, I'm sorry.
We don't even talk about how we got to, yeah, there you go. So, what happens is you load up one of these distros and you can point it to your server. Okay. In my case, my server has 12 different virtual machines running, each running its own MythTV distribution. Okay. So what I need to know is what the IP address is, what my username, what my password is, so that I can connect this to that box. That box then I can control through my Raspberry Pi interface. Now, all the data by default when it's stored off of Myth is huge. I think a 1 hour HD show is 6 gig, roughly 6 or 7 gig, if I remember correctly, just looking at the space, because most of these are somewhere between 10 and 12 gig on the disk space. There is a way after you save it to do encryption, to convert it, I'm sorry, not do encryption, basically to convert it so it takes up a heck of a lot of space. I've been having problems. I've not played with .27 to see if it's any better. .24 it was horrid and not easy to do. Now, the issue that you will find very, very quickly is you cannot run HD over wireless. You have to be wired. Because the bandwidth that's in that HD signal and the buffering that needs to happen and the codecs that are running locally on the Raspberry Pi ain't enough space, in my experience. I put it wired, and I'm able to watch HD stuff. I can watch SD stuff over the wireless, no problem. But to do HD, I need to have it wired in. And I think I only have, probably have 100, it's probably a 100 megabit network that I have on. I don't think I'm on a gig for the testing that I was doing. I may be on a gig network. Don't know. So at that point, all of the decryption, the codecs actually need to be on your Raspberry Pi. Like I said, it's roughly €4 or €5 to buy, or pounds. I forget how they charge me. I just remember I had to go and buy it overseas somewhere because that's where the Raspberry Pi is for the codec. So I have 2 codecs loaded on there, and now I can watch my HD stuff. Okay. One of the things with MythTV who have not played with it, which is very, very awesome, is you can turn on UPnP support, so Universal Plug and Play. Basically means any gaming console that you have, a PS, PSP, or PlayStation, whatever, an Xbox, whatever. I don't know if the Nintendo boxes have it or not. They're not bothered to try to set up on the Nintendo. I don't have an Xbox, but I know they work on Xbox. But you can basically go into your your PlayStation and say, hey, are there any UPnP servers out there? And it will see my Myth box. And I'll say, let's connect to it. Here are my directories, and I can see all of my videos and all the stuff I downloaded, and I can stream it and watch it remotely. With the, I am running wireless network to my PlayStation, and my PlayStation can handle streaming. Pretty sure it can handle streaming HD okay. So I'm guessing it's just that my PlayStation 3 is a little bit more powerful than a little Raspberry Pi. Considering it costs 10 times as much, it better be.
On a side note, UPnP is a great place to put a honeypot on a network.
Yeah. Thanks. So the Raspberry Pi, what I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to basically stream stuff. At that point, the Chromecast was not out. So it was basically the way to do a Chromecast. So those who don't know about Chromecast, Google the world has this little HDMI device. It looks like a USB key with a little circle on the end. And it has a micro USB out that I can plug into the wall for power. And basically it sits on my network, and I can stream anything from Android to that box. If I run, as you can see right here, if I click on it, it would say, hey, are there any Chromecast devices? And I can take anything that's running in a window in Chrome on any box that runs Chrome and throw it to my box. Okay, so basically, how it says it's connection, the rest don't know. All I know is I bought a TV, I bought a 47-inch LED for $250. I could have passed the price even if I didn't keep it. And I said, oh, it actually works pretty well, and so I have the Chromecast hooked up to that, so I can fire up my phone or my Android device. I'll fire up Netflix. I'll say, present here, and then I'll turn off my device and be able to watch my stuff on TV, which is nice because everybody can cut the cord. This is how I can cut the cord and still be able to watch things I care about on something larger than 13-inch or 7-inch tablet, 4-inch phone. So, streaming media, that's what I use it for. There are also a couple distributions that are kind of cool for gaming. I started playing with it and then got sidetracked and stopped. I actually have a box, and it's out there. It's installed and ready to go. I just haven't had a chance to play around with it anymore. So, I guess these are all the wrong Raspberry Pi distributions. Don't ask me what, let's see. Don't ask me. So Bodhi Linux I know is just a Linux. There's a Fedora for it, a Gen 2 for it. IP Fire, I'm going to guess is some sort of firewall. Where is it? OpenSUSE, so I can make it into a WRT, so I can make it into a router with firewall and all sorts of magic stuff on it. There's a VPN box, I'm guessing. Raspbian, I know, is XBMC. There is, there's a Plan 9. Plan 9. PyMain. So PyMain is, MAME is multi-arcade something. Machine emulator, thank you. And once you install this, you need to take your second USB port and hook that up to some sort of external USB drive with all of your ROMs on it, and then you can play your ROMs. I was able to find one ROM out there, test ROM, just to make sure the thing worked, and sure enough, it does work well enough to be able to play around. I have not had a chance to go and get all of my ROMs that I own legal copies of online to put on the device. But it's basically a nice little thing. People are using it from home automation. I'm guessing there's probably an X10 implementation that comes out there. So for those who are old enough to remember the way the AC works, alternating current on through your walls, you can actually pass information along that. So the electricity runs here like this, and then you can pass data basically 180 degrees off, if I remember correctly. And there's a whole bunch of devices, and I bought a couple of X10 things that I have at home that I never bothered setting up. For those who've heard of Nest and what Google's doing, or Zigbee, which is another format for home automation, it's the same thing, but it's 20, 30 years old. Same technology, but instead of using wireless internet or what have you, you're using the AC current.
Using area current stuff.
Yeah. So I wanted it, like I said, just to be able to do some display, and I figured for, like I said, I think for $50 a pop, it was worth getting it and trying. There are easy ways, there are lots of little tools out there. I'd have to dig up the tool because I don't remember off the top of my head what it's called, to write the SD cards. So a lot of people, how do I get into the SD card so I can then take the SD card and boot? You can run the DD command, which is, for those who want to do it from command line, but there's actually a little GUI where I can say, oh, take this distribution, write it to this SD card, format it, set it up, and do everything. XBN or Raspbian, XBN. So I know with XBN, it puts enough on it so that when you boot it, it actually pulls and builds it. It's basically I'll call it a jump start image. So what it does is it pulls down the rest, formats the card, sets the card up, downloads all the updates, and sets everything up for you. So the initial boot, when you've had it hooked up to your device, can take a little bit of time depending on your internet connection to actually come live with the work. Does that answer your question? Yeah. A little roundabout way. You good, Roger? Yeah? Where the decoding is? I told you it's on the Raspberry Pi.
It's on the Pi.
Yep. That's why you have to buy
It comes
that.
with Steam.
Yeah, you need to buy the licenses, so
I got
if I
you,
do.
yeah. Because I took a lot more powerful video board to decoding a video stream.
Yeah, so here's the license key. This one is 2.4 pounds. The other key you need is the VC1. So it's 360, 3 pounds and 60 pence, whatever. I don't know how it goes. Funny people tell their money. So, but yeah, so for a couple bucks you get it. The only thing that's interesting is you need to boot up the machine, and it actually tells you how to figure out, because it's tied to, if you look right here, it's tied to your serial number. So you need to actually have it up. You need to do a cat on proc CPU and grab the serial number that you're going to send to them, because they're going to send you the magic to decode it based on your serial number. Okay? So it's per device. When they say within 72 hours, my experience is within 10 minutes. So, or within an hour, right? So it's the same sort of day. That said, give yourself 72 hours in case funky is going on and it's taking a little bit longer to get your stuff. So, with that, we have done this.
Get mine for a while. Give those a chance.
IRC, old school chat. That's basically the way to think about it.
Okay, well then I have to ask my question.
Okay.
Is it even worth hooking up? Because usually you're looking for answers to questions like on the forums and so on.
Yes, it's live forums.
Live forums.
That's the way.
So you can count on it as giving you answers in real time almost.
Sometimes.
As long as you have the right chapters.
Don't count on it.
It is possible.
That's the whole point, yeah.
Yeah, there are people out there where people are actively getting into the groups, but they're becoming fewer and fewer each year.
You will not have any of the voting up, voting down aspects that some more recent forums have now, where like a questions and answers forum, somebody says, how do I do this? And somebody says, and then, best answer, right, and it gets voted up by the community there. There's none of that. It's more
So it's a derivative of Usenet. And
chat.
No, it's
chat. It's chat.
No, it's live chat.
Yeah.
And you don't really need an account. I think Doug Toppin pointed out on the chat.
There's a few of the IRC.
I got my answer, thanks.
So basically find the district you want, and there's probably a room specifically for questions.
Even many of the projects, I mean, if you ever have, like Zabbix involved in that monitoring, if you ever have problems, go to Freenode, pound Zabbix, where you go.
Freenode is probably the biggest collection of open source chat rooms right now. They're not the only one.
The websites for a lot of stuff also probably have either IRC information for their chat rooms or even an IRC client you can use in the browser.
You know, like IPA or IDM is the identity management product from Red Hat. Many of the developers for IDM hang out and pound IPA on Freenode. So if you're having a problem with IPA getting it up and running, you can actually talk to the developers of it in that channel and basically work directly with them, as I've actually had to do on customer sites. And so, I mean, internal to Red Hat, that's all we use for chat is IRC, internally.
Because we have access to the chat package, you can just install IRC on the server, like you want to run your own. There's a lot of plugins, you can write bots, and scripts, and filtering, and I have all that kind of stuff in there.
Right, you say, yes, it can be useful. Go to Freenode for whatever, find what topic you're interested in, listen for a while, watch before you start.
That was my point is.
Don't take kindly to asking the same question more than once in like a 15-minute period. That is a quick way to get yourself banned from the channel.
Learn for a while.
Yeah.
Well, like even that, if you're unknown, this is not page support, right? People are not sitting there waiting for you to ask a question. So it can take a while, and remember, people might sign on from a completely different time zone to you. So they may appear that they're online, but they're actually asleep somewhere in Asia. Right? So you've got to be a little bit careful. It may look like there's 50 people in there, but that doesn't mean there will be someone there ready to answer questions.
But what it does mean is that they're keeping the screen active, so when you do wake up, they have a chance to glance at it, and you probably will get some response.
Yeah, but at that point you may be asleep, and you may not be asleep. So.
Does it publish your IP?
Yes and no.
By default, yes, but you can have a virtualized host and or a proxy running through it.
So Freenode has a sponsorship behind it. If you help out or anything else, you can get yourself anonymized. If you are
On the internet, there is no such thing as privacy.
well, at least not unless you are an IRC comp. So
if you're on the internet, there is no such thing as privacy.
no.
And if you think there is,
I didn't say what you thought I said.
Right. But my point is, anybody who thinks they're on the internet and doing anything, actually anybody who thinks they're using any public roads and thinks they have any privacy is mistaken. There is no privacy, and every day we find out a little bit more, like what's going on in the UK, and they found out, I mean, they can track anybody walking the streets in the UK now, right? And it's happening in the US, but it's not in the smaller cities.
Or on the subway, or on the.
Yeah, I mean, you hop on the subway, how many people, I stopped using Foursquare, I stopped using, I stopped using a lot of that stuff, but I still have my FastPass, so they know where I am at any given time. I use a credit card, they know where I am at any given time.
Well,
You have a phone? Yeah, you can't turn off GPS. You can turn off some of it, but there's still information that's being sent, because it's connected to the cell tower.
I was going to say, if you're not in airplane mode, it does send out signals. Otherwise, you can't get calls. And they can be triangulated, not precise.
Yep.
I mean,
if you've got enough radio towers next to you, it can be pretty daggone precise.
Yeah. So my point is, and it's funny when people will ask me questions, and it's like, no, I don't have a tinfoil hat on. But you have no privacy, and anybody who thinks they do.
TNO.
I'm sorry?
Is it TNO?
TNO.
Trust no one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and
paranoid.
Yeah, I mean, and there was a book by Dave Eggers that I just read called The Circle. If anybody hasn't read it, it's a short read. It's not like most of his books. It's a very light summertime reading, and you can read it. And if you don't think of Google when you're reading it, I will shock it. Basically, and I love Google. All my domains are at Google. I know they track everything I do, and that's fine. And I've accepted that for the ease of my life. But the one thing is they actually go live where people are walking around with cameras and broadcasting their lives.
Yeah.
And how they get to that point and how it ends at the end is an interesting read. And people ask me, they asked me to read it, so I read it. I'm like, there's nothing in there that I read and go, that's not possible. Everything I think is possible. It's like if you have not read Little Brother by Cory Doctorow, everybody should read Little Brother. I don't know if Homeland came out with the second book, the next book came out.
It's out.
Is it? Yeah. Is it as good?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I just started yesterday.
Okay. I know he's writing Utopia right now, and I never really finished. Anybody who does not know, all of Cory Doctorow's books are available for free, unencrypted, and all he asks is if you read them and you want to do something, either buy them and donate it. He actually has a list of people who would like his book that can't afford it, libraries, schools, whatever. You can send them money and they'll make sure the books get delivered for those who don't have digital copies. I think I've read all of his books, or most of his, because I've not read the latest. They're great stories. Makers is an awesome one. It's about maker spaces and to the next level. Down and Out in Disneyland. Well, basically, it's about the future where the rides at Disneyland are taken over by fans. And he is obsessed with the Haunted Mansion, and so it's about the Haunted Mansion. Great little short read. His books are awesome, and I like that, I can keep them on all my devices and, read them if I'm stuck somewhere, go back and reread.
Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom.
Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom. Awesome short story. So I recommend for those who have not read that. Email encryption. So email encryption depends on your client.
Oh, let me phrase my question. Yeah, I've already figured out the plugins I need to have to help.
Okay.
Okay, but last year we signed some keys. I think my key got uploaded someplace, I'm not sure where. Somebody wants to send me an encrypted message. They need my public key. How do they get it?
So there is a man fingerprint. So I believe it's fingerprint your email address. Is that right? Anybody know offhand?
It's been so long.
All right. Here.
Doesn't the email client figures it out?
Fingerprint GJP at may work. Yeah, I don't have it. Let's see.
It's looking for your.
Oh, you're talking about query the MIT public key database?
Yeah, that's not fingerprint. The fingerprint is your own fingerprint.
Well, I want my own fingerprint because that's what I need to do is give them my fingerprint so I can tell them how to get my key. I want to tell someone how to get my key.
Yeah, but you do that on a key server. That's why I got a key server.
Yeah, no, but there's MIT runs a public.
All right, so
there are tons of
we'll
public
look it
ones
up.
out there. So
Get
you don't.
public key for.
If you set up DPG on your email client, when you type in an email address and you say you want to encrypt to that person, it will query the key servers for that person's public key. And your key signing allows you to say, well, do you actually know who that person is, or vice versa, when they send you something.
So the quick answer, they need to set up on their end the encryption plugin. Then they need to pick your address, your email address. And then it should ask, do you want to encrypt this message? Or do you want to sign this message? And then they would answer yes or no, and then it would query, grab the key that they need to do that encryption or signing.
Okay, so they don't need to know what key server mine is for.
It will query a big set of servers.
Okay.
And there are some very big ones that most people will go to, anything like MIT and so on. There's a very, very good chance that if it's a standard person that you meet, they will be on the public key servers or written on MIT, for instance. But some of us also are on a little more enclosed, for instance, within companies, you may have a key server there. But then you just configure your client and say, use that key server.
Just out of my curiosity, if I followed all the instructions when we did the party last year, which server?
It should be on MIT.
MIT.
Yep. So let's do it this way. What email address did you use?
I used several, but I used Tom at Gutnick, GUTNICK.us.
That's not good when it actually comes up and suggests your name.
No, that's his LinkedIn. Should be, well, it's. Even though it's somewhere, where's that? Is it ER? Yeah, where's it?
So if you go to gpg.mit.edu.
This isn't an encryption email.
So, if I just went to pgp.mit.edu and put in your email address, and there's your key. Okay. So pgp.mit.edu is where someone can find your key. Just like that.
Your public key.
Public key. In theory.
I do understand
Yeah. Answered? Good?
Thank you.
Yep. Awesome. Usenet, it's still out there.
So on the Usenet thing, a lot of the Usenet groups are now mirrored as mailing lists. Easiest way to find Usenet stuff, assuming you're looking for something specific, I think Google Groups has a Usenet.
Yeah, but it's a very reduced version of what used to be Usenet.
Well, sure, yeah. They do heavily filtering, but it's better than nothing.
All the binary groups disappeared very, very quickly because that turned out to be more than 90% of all traffic, and most of it was illegal. He was a wild thing for that. And then websites took over and we used forums instead.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Does everybody know what Usenet was?
No.
Is? No.
That's where the glory was.
So a long, long time ago.
Galaxy far, far away.
You wanted a place where people could share and do stuff, and there weren't a lot of mailing groups, right? So what happened is people would set up, on Usenet was a way to set up an area where people could talk about different things.
This is before www. Right. So this is
Yeah, it's all before web, all before web. So let me see, Usenet.
History.
History and topics. Yeah, let's see if it'll come up with
So when this group
alt.music.makers.percussionists.
Well, that's why I was looking for the alt. So here we go, the hierarchy. Okay. So basically, there are 8 top-level hierarchies. So you can be comped out something which is all computer-related stuff. News, right, where you can get stuff about Usenet. Sci for scientific, rec for recreational stuff, miscellaneous. Then once alt started, alts were all.
Anything that didn't fit into those categories?
Well, basically, that's where you're
like 50 different versions of the same topics.
Alt.alt.
Yeah.
You promised not to say that.
Yeah, well.
And then every country got their own prefix.
Yeah. So here's the alt part hierarchy. Here we go, list of news groups.
Well, the hierarchy is not set, so anybody can gain hierarchy.
That is correct. That is correct. So what you would do is, right, so you'd have rec, under arts, then you go to movies, then you go past films, current films, sci-fi TV. I mean, you get down to .muppets.work. You had Star Trek ones that came out, or, extremely, Kurt and Green Aliens.
But the difference
whatever.
between this and a mailing list is very simple. You get access to the archives directly. So when you subscribe, you actually see all the old posts. You're not just seeing all the new ones.
Well, and I don't know.
You see all the posts as far back as your NFTP provider would house.
As long as that database took it, and that was the problem. There was so much junk traffic that they went.
Well, there's also no guarantees that news servers would actually forward posts between each other. So one news server may see it, another may not, because it was actually built, if I remember, on top of UUCP and BitNet.
Yeah.
So and UUCP and BitNet weren't guaranteed protocols. They were best effort protocols, if I remember right.
So people would have copies, right? So there could be multiple copies out there, so that it was very much dispersed around, so people would be able to find things locally to them. But this is all pre-dub. I forgot. It's all pre-dub, right? So people used Gopher back then, and there are all sorts of other.
was even.
I was
That was
looking
long
at what
before
I used to
Gopher.
read regularly.
Right.
There have been 12 posts to it since the beginning of June.
Huh.
You know, it used to be very active, so
Right.
a lot of them are basically dead.
But anyway, it was the way, I mean, I was on one, that's why I shared music tapes of live bands, right? So we would be able to do things. They actually would set it up also so you could get it digest mode, so if you did not have a reliable connection, basically on a regular basis, at 30K, 300K, whatever daily, you get a digest, so you can read the digest and go through there, find different things. But it was basically how information was shared 20-some years ago, 30 years ago.
It's the next step from the mailing list from everyone.
Got a question online about botnets and how you participate and how you get involved in botnets. I think that may have been under the RSC topic.
Under what?
Botnets.
What the hell is that about botnets? And we don't do illegal stuff here.
No, there was a comment that people are unwillingly sometimes participating in botnets without knowing it.
Okay.
And RSC is a big mechanism behind those.
Well, so IRC uses a communication protocol for a lot of command and control servers on botnets. It is no longer the favored protocol, and they use their own things like Jabber servers or just about anything you can imagine where they can communicate, right?
Vouchers.
But I mean, that was 10 years ago in the malware industry. They've moved on. Most botnets are much smarter than that now. You know, all the security researchers are looking at Usenet. They scan it automatically and they look for the command and control strings.
Did that answer the question for the online person?
Well, let the online person answer that, but
Well, yeah, I'm waiting for them to respond.
You have
yeah.
to wait 35 seconds. 'Cause
There you go, the delay. Okay.
Yeah, it's about a 60-65% delay on feed.
So we'll know in a couple minutes if that is answered. or not.
Someone's comment is that Google Plus could be a new version of RSC, but I'm not sure I would go that far.
No, I mean, Google
No, but-
Chat.
Hangouts kind of gets there, but not quite.
There is an actual native client for Chrome for the IRC as well. It is its own little plugin. But it is retardedly.
Come on, Ursi for the win.
Sorry, word alert.
Yeah,
Ursi for the win.
there's a
Way too much.
plugin for pretty much any browser these days. Yeah, that was actually found, and I'm thinking it's Tumblr. So anybody who's on Tumblr and uses it on their cell phone and has a data cap, I recommend only using it over Wi-Fi, as my daughter has learned. It will eat her bandwidth in like a few days. It also appears that Chrome and Tumblr under Mavericks is a no-no also, because my Chrome client started crashing all the time. It's the only thing I can figure out. I'm running Firefox, I have no problem. But if I'm running Chrome, my entire laptop will lock up.
Let's see, do you have any of the web accelerator for the like pre-fetch stuff before it shows up on the
Yeah,
screen?
WebGL is by default enabled in.
So I turned off hardware acceleration and all that, thinking that was, because that was the first thing it said, is turn off hardware acceleration. And so I turned off hardware acceleration and Mavericks is still locking up. And the only thing I can figure is Tumblr, but I'm running under Firefox and not having any problems. And I may go back and try to debug and figure it out, but I don't really care about
Flags in the URL.
Uh-huh.
Instead of plugins, try flags.
Okay.
Go down to WebGL.
Okay.
Make sure that that's actually disabled. And that actually should allow you to clean that up a lot. Because that's also where you can do it. If you do Chrome, just like you would do HTTP.
It says disable, right, so it's disabled.
Yeah, just.
That's it. It is disabled.
You have a follow-up to the bot, I think.
Okay.
Saying, how about talking on RSC, would you become part of a botnet if you just talk on RSC?
You can't.
No.
You can't. You can only actually
There has to be some.
query one, or you have to have your own actual plot itself.
You don't get the botnets just by associating with IRC.
I have a feeling they're misunderstanding the idea of bots on IRC as opposed to being.
Got it. Oh,
So
excellent
you
point.
can have channel bots, server
Right.
bots, things like that.
Those are
Not
good
like
things.
bots.
Not always,
Those are like
they can
automated-
be.
Those are automated servants to manage and control the IRC channel or operations and things going on there. That has completely nothing to do with the malware.
Infobots, yes, but there are some not so fun bots on IRC.
But they're still different from botnet.
Right, it's not a botnet, it's not the malware botnet. It's more automated bots being robots, being things that are responding and managing and interacting with you or the people in that channel.
Like awesome trolls.
Okay, so that was the point behind the initial question, I guess,
Got it.
was that you thought that by being on IRC, you were part of the botnet.
Got it. Different bots.
Completely different.
And that's interesting because we do overload words a lot. The USB VM question, I never really fully understood it. Who had that?
Me. I've got VMs that are running, they do have USB capability. But when I want to boot, if I want to temporarily boot with a password corrector or something like that, from a USB stick into that virtual machine, you get a 12 message saying which device you want to boot from. And when I bring that up, there's no USB access at that point. So I'm wondering, before you get to the OS, is there any way to have VirtualBox
VM are
show
you using?
Yeah, which
VirtualBox?
If you're using VirtualBox, your virtual manager needs to actually have USB in the boot order, as well as the extension map for it to do that. So if it's like when you actually fire up VBox, when you actually have those options for USB, floppy, all that other nonsense, USB has to be enabled on that one for you to actually be able to boot from the USB. And then if it recognizes that USB, just like if you were running it on real hardware, if it recognizes it, it should allow you to actually fire it up.
So, for instance, in VirtualBox here, I can go to settings, and I'm in my Fedora box, and I say storage, and at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, but this way I think I would hit, well, it's running right now, so I guess I can do this. Let's do this. Let's grab, I learned Puppet 1, which is not running. Go to Puppets, go to storage. Let me add a new storage device. I'm going to add, I guess, what I add is
tab for USB.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't think you have the expansion pack in, because you should, like you said, have a second one,
Okay.
or a third one rather, for USB. So go into your extensions in the main settings for the actual VM itself, for the actual.
All right, so I go here, go to settings.
VirtualBox references.
Oh, yeah, your full-blown actual visor, yeah, in preferences. And then go down into extensions. Yeah, you don't have the expansion pack, that's why.
Okay.
So you can't do USB emulation without the expansion pack.
VirtualBox.org.
Yes. VirtualBox.org or slash download big D, and then it should actually have the expansion pack halfway down the page.
Which is different from extensions. That you install.
Yeah, it is the extension
Oh,
pack,
it's
but
just-
they consider it the expansion itself because they feel that for people that are just trying to test things, that's not something that's absolutely needed. However, for most of the folks like us that are doing, server deployments, things like that, that might need an actual USB plug-in or something like that.
Why? This is what I don't get. Make it the DD out there.
Extension pack, I'm looking, because you get.
Why
that
use the
to
real
get-
device?
The extension pack is not under a free open source license.
That's the other thing. VBox is, as an actual client, the expansions are not. Same with the SDK. The SDK for VirtualBox is not under an open license. So it has its own EULA, as does the actual extension pack.
This
Unit
is
center P complete.
this is a debate I've had with several people starting out with virtualization, just as just playing around. That they still, where do I put in the CD? How do I make it happen? And I go, well, why do you need the devices? Just pretend you have them, have an image of them. It's a lot easier to manage.
Do I need to restart then for the computer?
Probably need to read it.
Yeah. That's another reason why I'm not.
If you have virtual VBox, so you're not sure.
wonder, they complained about a version issue, so I was going to install it.
Probably not. I've had the same problem.
Says it's
No,
active now.
Version mismatch.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you running in?
Running an older version.
But anyway, so it appears that if you have that version of pack there, and then if you go here, click on settings, you'll then have a USB, you click on the USB, add the USB device at C, and then be able
Worst case, if it still fails, do either an LSPCI or USB and grab the actual vendor information and create a filter for the USB if it doesn't already actually see it.
That would be in
the actual manager for VBox itself. Yeah, in the actual preferences where he was just at, you'll actually see one for the actual storage and USB ports then, once you do that. And if it doesn't auto-detect it, just go ahead and grab it for the filter. Same thing for if you were actually hooking it up to, say, like an Android device or something like that for the VM as an external device. For like GPS or something like that, you could go ahead and do it that way as well, but you would actually need that pack in order to actually be able to do USB emulations and or additions to the actual box.
So if you install the extension pack that enables you to see external drives via a USB port.
It allows USBs, it allows some extra stuff for CDs and DVDs as well.
But that'll give him what he wants.
Correct, that will give him the functionality for it, yes.
I've had to go to VirtualBox's website about 3 times to get the right version.
Yeah, I just
Greg,
saw.
one
yes,
thing I would
yes.
recommend is that you get on at least a Core 3 version.
I am running 4.3.
Okay.
The problem was I downloaded the 4.2 version.
That would be part.
Because I didn't see that there was, so, I'll show you, with their website for someone like me. So here it says, hey, you want 4.3, grab it from here.
Yeah.
But down here it lists all the versions. So it's, to me, all the downloads should be together, not, here's the current one, here are the older ones. I don't like that.
I've seen the same.
Bad information architecture. The new term.
Whatever. Okay, so it's gonna be a pain in my ass. I don't care enough right now because I don't need to do it.
You probably have Core 3.12 on Mavericks, and that was 4.13, or 3.14.
So yeah, I need to find the right stupid one.
Yeah, VBox is retarded with that.
Is 3.6.
Yeah, that would be why.
So, and I'm running whatever they told me the latest one was.
In Mavericks, it's going up to 3.10, I believe, which is 2 versions behind the moment. So there are a few running.
Well, it says here it is for, well.
Did you install using a software application on your?
Yeah. Did you
download from VirtualBox?
I downloaded from VirtualBox. And then when I just fired up VirtualBox, now I ran in a couple months and said, hey, there's a new version, do you want? I said, sure, give me a new version. And take it like the version.
Another one too, if you do it from the software package, you end up with old versions.
It comes out with 4.2 on anything Ubuntu based or Debian based outright. And also, especially for the mid users that are in here, if you do use VirtualBox, do a apt-get purge of all of VBox first, because it does, for some retarded reason, have the guest extensions of 4.2, and then tries to grab 4.3 when you try to install it, and you get that same error, and it will not at all.
We'll come back to network D, because that will probably take a little bit longer browsing.
Okay, up to 9. When I open Nautilus and then go to networking, it lists all the machines on my LAN, and then down at the bottom it says Windows Network.
Okay.
Double click on Windows Network, and it lists all the same machines on my LAN. What's the difference between the first listing and the second listing after I go to Windows Network?
Do you have anything besides Windows machines on your LAN?
Yeah.
Does it see a block list?
Yes.
So it's probably SMB is being detected on both sides, and so you're seeing the same Samba, networking on both sides, because Windows machines use Samba. But on the Linux, on the other side, maybe SLP is being used for discovery, or Bonjour is also added in that discovery. So one side may be using more than just SNMP to discover, or SNMB to or SMB to discover. Could be using SMB, SLP, Bonjour, Universal Plug and Play, and a few of those things, whereas the Windows side will just use SMB.
So you'll have multiple run apps like that. If you're also running Nautilus, one way you can also do that is just actually set it in your connect to server settings to only do the one for your Samba itself. So that will show you anything that's on there regardless, and anything that's not using Samba won't show up when you actually connect to it by an actual connect by the IP address.
That help?
Yeah, thanks.
Excellent. I had a problem with, so something has your device that is listening there. You're running it under a VM or under a...
Basically, what I've done is I've installed Linux Mint on a thumb drive, and I'm booted off that. And I'm running an ancient application. It's actually a Windows 98 application, which does all my GPS related stuff. And when I plug in the GPS receiver, it recognizes the device, but when I try to open the thing up, it says the COM port's in use by another application. And I have no idea what that application, what it thinks that application is.
So if you know what the name of the device is, it sounds like you do, /dev/com or whatever, right?
Well,
it's telling you it's being used. Does it tell you the actual full name of that device, like /dev/ something?
Well, when I open the thing up,
yep.
It's COM1. Because that's what I've done is I've set up a symbolic link
Okay.
in my
that could be part of it.
That could be part of it, that you're not on the right device. It's not the device you think it is.
Well, I've tried other COM ports, and it's still.
But it's probably not even, it may not even be called a COM port. So what I'm trying to do is figure out how you know it's a COM port when it plugs in.
This is running in line?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're basically, you're making a lot of assumptions, and your very first assumption could be incorrect. So what I would recommend doing is, I do not have my device plugged in, okay? And you can run, so I know I can do an LS.
Should be LSOF or LF.
No. What I want to do is I want to look at all the devices out there when it's plugged in. I guess VARLOG messages should show up when it gets plugged in.
If you just run the straight mount without any actual flags, it should get every single device mounted. It's not going to be free.
Yeah, that's not going to help.
And serials are not going to be discovered.
But if I did a tail F / VARLOG messages.
Well, this thing's telling me that dev TTY USB 0.
That's what I need to know.
Okay, and it comes up, and in fact, I've got an older version on a different thumb drive, and I configured this thing exactly the same way. This works, this new system.
So why do I care about the new system? You got one that works. And I'm not being facetious, I'm really trying to understand why.
I'm just playing around with it right now.
Okay.
So I've got a system that I could actually use when I decide I want to use this old piece of equipment. Okay. But I wanted to try to find out how I can diagnose the problem.
So to diagnose the problem, once you know what the name of the device is, /dev/TTY, USB 0, whatever you just said, if I run the command lsof /dev
yeah,
that's going to return and tell me what applications are using that device. Okay, so I can see who actually is using that device. So ls, OF, one word, space, and then whatever the device is.
Similar command would be F user.
F user? Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the nice things about that is you ever get this message, can't unmount something.
Yep.
There's a -C option which you give a mount point, and it looks at all devices on that, all files on that mount.
Oh, okay.
And tells you what processes are using that.
So what I just asked was, why, you have something working, why go into a new version? And it may have come off that was being glib or what have you. And really, a lot of people get into, well, there's a newer version, I got to use it. And for me, if I got something that's working, I don't have enough time to play. Now, if there's a new feature, there's a good reason to upgrade or to use a newer version, awesome. The other thing that possible, maybe you have two devices so you can have them both mounted at the same time and do an LS between the two, do a PS, see what applications are running, and start sort of debugging to figure out what's different between the two. I mean, it's also possible that with a newer version, an old piece of hardware, the way something worked is no longer supported, right? Because you will find, just like with newer OSs, they may support new devices. They also may stop supporting. Yes.
What does LSOF stand for, /do?
List open files.
Yeah. So list.
So in addition to, remember, a Unix box, a file is not just something on the disk that holds a bunch of data. It could be your network port listeners, it could be network connections,
So
devices, etc.
in Unix, everything is a file. You did not know that. Your display is a file in Unix. Your network part is a file. Everything that the operating system sees is a file and is treated as a file. No, it is.
A file or folder?
Huh?
File or a folder?
Right. A folder is just a file with special.
You can name a folder.
Yeah. Yeah. Cat folder name, and you will see the list of files underneath there.
Try to find the Unix code.
So, and the only reason I know a lot of this, so, put on my old timer hat. I was doing an upgrade of, I think it was Unixware for a doctor's office. And we needed to rewire the new office, and while we were rewiring his new office, we were going to do an upgrade of the OS for him. So we started doing the upgrade of the OS, and then it turns out you needed the license key for Unixware. And of course, the doctor didn't have it, we didn't have it, this was a weekend, we have to be up Monday morning running. So I don't know if Mark Smith's out there or not. If not, hey Mark, if you're there over in New Zealand, Mark and I were doing this, and Mark may or may not remember this. But we were there, and one of the things is we had a very limited operating system. VI did not exist.
No, that's what God did on the first day.
If I remember, LS did not exist. So you did not have LS, so you could not LS. But I had cat. So you could do cat dot, and it would do basically an LS. So one of the things that I learned is with cat, you can do almost everything you need. So we were able finally to move our way around the operating system and find the file and be able to do it. But it was a very, ed existed, so anybody who uses VI and uses colon, you're basically running ed commands at that point. So even though you didn't know you knew the editor ed, you did. The difference is VI is more than one line at a time, ed is one line at a time. So it was actually interesting. I've been visiting this client once over the last every week for the last 2 weeks. And there's a guy, he's a Windows guy, and he's learning Linux, and he's doing a great job, and he's learning a little bit about VI, and we needed to edit some files. And I was like, I'm just going to give you a bunch of random characters that you're just going to hit on the keyboard, and then you're going to see magic happen on the screen. Then we'll go back and describe what we did, right? So one of the things that people may or may not know about, which I use a fair amount these days, is %s. Right? So %s search. So this says search the entire file for this string, replace it with this string. And minus G, I'll do it for multiple options on the line, right? It won't do it just for the first one. the other thing, instead of -s, I could do, 1,6 if I want to do the first 6 lines. People may or may not know if you do double quote M and then some sort of character, you're actually setting a mark into the file, right? And then, so then what I can do here is, so I can basically say, grab this section of code, right? Here's the stuff. It's a single quote to mark it and double quote to grab it. I think it's a double quote to grab it and a single quote to mark it.
I use the same one both times. Double quote.
I use
One of them marks the line, the
Yes.
other one marks the character.
I'm marking the line. I think double quote marks the line. Maybe it's single quote. It's either a single or double quote. One will do the mark. And then I use the other one to pull it. So for instance, what I can do is if I want to do a search, or I will do, mark A, mark B, capital Y, will yank that entire thing, right? So how do I yank multiple lines, be able to put it in a buffer, and then I can add, or I can do mark A6 double Y, we'll say grab this line and the next 5 lines, put it in a buffer, so that if I go to edit my next file, if I call an N, I need to be able to paste it into another file. So all the things that we were able to do to get him to edit files pretty quickly, which he was pretty excited about, but I forgot to take him on the cheat sheet, so I'm going to do that.
Refresh mine, double quotes for buffers. Single quotes for marking.
Okay, got it. Okay, yeah, that's right. So what, I mean, it's,
So if you had your,
yeah.
quote A, quote B, a comma, quote B, Y, double quote, X. That would put into the buffer X, those
Those two things.
lines.
And it's interesting because one of them, he was asking how to do it, and I'm like, I don't know. So I had to open up an editor and let my fingers do it, and then just pay attention to what my fingers do, because some of the commands I don't remember how to do.
It's just muscle memory.
Yeah, it's 100% muscle memory. And while I'm doing it, I'm thinking it, but I can't, recall it. The other one that was, oh yeah, the other thing was, using, after I perform a thing, just using dots is just do what I just did, right? So like leaving a line, or doing a replacement or whatever. But there's a way that I can actually set up a whole sequence of characters and save it to a repeat, so that hitting a dot or whatever repeats 6 commands instead of just 1 command. Dot, by default, only repeats the last command. But there's a way to do a buffer, and there's a guy, Jim Schaefer. Hey Jim, I know you're not out there. But he had taught me how to do that 20 years ago. But it's that thing, I don't do it often. So, before we get into the logging, network D. Does anybody out there know about network D? Yeah.
I just Googled it, but
What's it say?
it's a new idea for
Is anybody using it?
CNERS that is trying to come out with another way of doing networking that looks exactly like Red Hat's networking with different names. So I'm not sure how that differentiates. It's funny when you look at what Fedora does, and we're going away from these files, and it looks like Network D is going to use those files to set it up on System D, which I'm not sure makes any sense to me. I'll have to read more about it.
Yeah, don't post. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, well, so the interesting thing, did they ever get bridging working properly in Network Manager?
Did they get what?
Bridging, do they support bridging properly?
Spice, I know, yes. It's been working, I think, since Fedora 19 or 20.
It is, but it's not pretty.
It's not as easy as it should be. So it looks like that's one of the things.
Neither is wireless. I mean, I wish wireless would be fixed. But
Oh.
I think just creating a network device.
Out loud on Fedora, that's a pain in the ass.
So network D, no one knows much about, so someone's going to research it and I'll be back next week.
So what do you guys use for logging? First log server.
Well, even though you hate it, works really well.
I didn't say I hated anything.
I heard the Heron comment that usually.
That was for Splunk.
What's the environment?
probably, no cluster types, probably around 35 servers in an AWS cloud environment. So CloudWatch Log is not able to grab all this stuff, which is really nice. Sorry to change from Linux to AWS, but so not very large, not hundreds of servers, not thousands of servers. And
So Pete, stand up and start plugging information.
So,
since you're the guy.
So here's what I am looking at. And I'm, at this point, this exercise today with you now is just to collect names of stuff that you use. And one is called ELK, which stands for Elasticache, LogWatch. Logstash. Thank you. And Kibana.
Yep.
Is anyone here using that?
Yep.
I tried.
I tried.
Hate it.
It's
without it.
Out of the box. It's fun. I actually set it up at a client site 2 weeks ago, and it's a lot of little tiny pieces that you have to do, and it's a lot of little pieces that you have to put together to get something that's even beginning to be useful. It looks like it has the potential to be as powerful, or at least approximating the power of Splunk, but it takes a lot of effort to kind of bring these separate, disparate pieces together. It's all done by one company, so on the one hand, it's nice that, hey, one vendor kind of wrote all these tools, so they kind of play nice with each other, but it takes a lot of effort just to get them because, and the other one is they're all written, as Java programs and Java modules and stuff like that. So you bring in all the nice Java glory with that as well.
Yeah.
It's but it does look to have the potential to be extremely powerful, and I think one reason why they may not have made it quite so streamlined and simple is they also offer professional services to come out and install the stuff.
You mean like Red Hat?
I'd say we're a little better in the upstream. I'd say we're a little better in the upstream, but I get your point.
So I did sort of central logging for my company for years, so I solved some of these problems. Couple of questions. One, how much data are you looking at per day?
So we need to find that out.
Yeah, so in sort of magnitude, are you thinking 5 gigs, 50 gigs, 500 gigs, or 5 terabytes?
Yeah.
5 terabytes is going to be way expensive, but the other things are going to have some scaling problems that go along with it.
Yeah, this is a line of business web application for a civilian agency with many what you would call regional offices.
Okay. Fair enough. So
government business.
Yeah.
So maybe 2 or 3. And it's Apache 2.4, it's Tomcat 8, and RDS.
Okay. So, and you just answered part of the second question, which is structured data or unstructured data. So your Apache 2.4 logs are structured. Your Tomcat is not. Java logs are not structured. I don't care what anybody says. If Java developers generally do not write structured log files, even if they're using log4j or sflog or whatever it is. You can get some structure out of it, but there's usually a whole bunch of sort of random stuff after your date, time, facility, class name, and then random.
So Logstash by itself looked like a lot of fun and very powerful. Fun in the customization ability.
I think it's a logo.
But
they may not be able to tell he wears a mustache, so that's why.
No, I was talking about words on a piece of paper.
Okay, so it's a combination of structured and unstructured. And then the next question is how much time are you going to have to build your environment and maintain it? So you said you're going to deploy it for a client. Is this something you're going to deploy and expect them to be able to pick up and run with, or are you going to be tied to this for months or years as a person they call and they don't know how to use it, or it doesn't work, or it doesn't scale? Take your pick.
I need to speak with the client because I'm working through a prime. So I need to speak with the client about what they're doing now and how they want to maintain this going forward. And so if they, and both with their sysadmin folks and their auditing security folks, because of course they're both interested in the same information and they'll consume it regularly.
That's the next question.
Right.
Data governance, separation, and data retention. So if you want to hold on to data a while, and there's a lot of data, just say you're at AWS, your scaling thoughts and long-term data storage discussions need to happen up front, because that is where your big costs are going to be for disks and your IOPS requirements to be able to store that stuff and be able to retrieve it in something that is not measured in weeks.
Right.
Tape.
Tape. Anti-tape. Yeah.
There's a company called Scality that solves this problem.
That solves the taping problem.
Other stuff.
Well, yeah, one thing to also note about Splunk. Splunk has, I think, one of the most unique pricing models around. I like to describe it as the drug dealer model.
That's what I meant by heroin.
So yeah, because they get you hooked on the first 500 gig is free per month, and that 500.
It's now 1 gig per day.
Oh, it's 1 gig per day. Okay, so it's 30 gig a month.
So it's less than 500.
So actually, it used to be 500 megs a day or
It used
something.
to be 500 megs a day.
Yeah, that's what it was. So, so I mean, still 500 megs a day is a lot of data. 1 gig now is a fair amount. But what I thought was funny was then at anything above 500 meg, they would then charge you like $2,500 a year. And then between 1 gig and 2 gig was another $2,500. And then 2 gig to 3 gig was like $2,000. So you didn't begin to get the price breakdowns until you basically were $5,000 into their pocket, or something along those lines. This was a few years ago, but their product out of the box worked great. It worked it worked wonderfully. It allowed you to take unstructured data, put structure to that data. It allows you to do a lot of dynamic filtration. Even allows you to do dynamic graph generation. I basically used it one place, and we had all of our squid servers, or we had a squid server that dumped all of its logs straight into Splunk. From there, I could then generate a log of, say, okay, how many hits per day were to Facebook, anything within Facebook.com. I could now do a regex search and pull that information out, and then graph it within Splunk. I could then take some of that data and actually then push it to Zabbix if I wanted to as well. So Splunk has the ability to take a lot of data in from a lot of crazy places and push it out as well.
Can I run a private instance of it?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, that's what most people do.
Okay.
I
assumed it was logging as a service or something.
No, that's actually kind of a secondary thing. They were designed around. Yeah, they were designed to act as a syslog server. That's what their primary, design was, and so everything they built has centered around that Unix syslog mentality, which I think is probably one of the best things. They focused on a solid underlying platform and then built the integration on top of it.
It's Matt Reduce under the covers. So if you're familiar with the Joy 2 Corpus, it's a lot of the same concepts. They don't use a database underneath, so there's Oracle or MySQL or anything else. It's a proprietary bucketing mechanism. And when you dump the data in there, they go through and do some metadata assembly and make it searchable. And it's a column-oriented database thing instead of a row-oriented database. Those of you who understand databases. And all of the raw data is still there to throw all of it away. So if you need to go back and regurgitate logs from 6 months ago, you can go back and get the exact log data you need for automating requirements and security stuff.
I have one or two more that I want to ask about. One is Graylog 2, GRAYLOG 2. Any you have used it before, not used it before? Thoughts?
A little bit. So Graylog 2 does some of the same things as ELK and Splunk does. It's a fairly easy thing to run in AWS in the cloud. The experience I've had with it is as a UDP log listener. So it'll pick up syslog stuff. It'll also pick up there's some hooks you can put into your Java code that'll write stuff to Graylog directly with your UDP, which is great as long as you're willing to lose some of your log data, because it's UDP, which means, hey, did you get it?
Yes,
and you don't even get to ask the question, because you didn't get it. What is it? I tell you a UDP joke, but you wouldn't get it.
Yeah, I got a TCP joke.
Exactly. So you can put a bunch of Graylog servers together, sort of, and have them know about each other, or have them completely distinct from each other. There's no licensing wrap around it. It's free, et cetera, et cetera. What I have heard from the folks in my company that ran it was not a fire and forget platform. It took a fair bit of ongoing maintenance and care and feeding. It was referred to as petting the Graylog server. They pet the servers every day to make sure they're happy.
So it's a Tamagotchi product.
They didn't quite describe it as that, but that is certainly a possibility. and I don't have any experience with how well it's scaling. Our Graylog server had a very small data retention time, and it did not handle the like. One of the lines of business wanted to throw 20,000 events a second at it, and they turned it on, and Graylog we told them turn it off, and Graylog came back. So I don't think that's a Graylog thing. I think it was a scaling thing on our side. But you have to think about what you put into it and the rate of data that you're throwing to it.
Okay. Another one is ELSA, Enterprise Log Search and Archive, which is hosted on code.google.com. Go on.
Yeah, so if anybody else has experience with this, please pipe up. I like to hear myself talk. So ELSA was started as sort of one of these, as I understand it, one of these Google 20% things. Like one guy at Google said, hey, let me throw something together, and like the entire documentation was one web 8.html page. It is database centric. It does store data and retrieve data fairly well and quickly, but the UI on it was very lacking. You got to spend a lot of time doing UI work, including apparently writing a bunch of code. A year or so, to get stuff out of it. So it was not like a Splunk or an ELK thing where you get a pretty Kibana thing and you start pumping some stuff in. A year or so ago, maybe a year and a half ago, Mandiant sort of bought that guy from Google. I don't know if slavery is illegal in the US today, and said, hey, this is a great tool. We're going to make it really good, and now we're going to charge for it. And apparently, from what I understand, what they're charging for the Mandiant version of ELSA, it makes Splunk look practically free. I have not had experience with the newer version of ELSA, but I have heard that they are putting some pretty good effort behind it to make it scalable and get it to the point where it took a lot less effort to get. You can get data into it, but getting information out of it is pretty tough. That is actually sort of the thing I found with a lot of these things. Very long, I can get data into it. Also, I watch people get data into it. And ELK, you can get data into it because Logstash is just this big giant sponge. It's getting useful information out of these things. It turns out to be the much, much harder problem. It's not impossible, but they all have a learning curve. Some of them are steep. Some of them are steep to get going faster, and some of them are really long curve to get stuff out of it.
So if for a first step up, I'm only interested in the former, getting stuff into it, then there's Logstash, there's just a syslog server.
Yeah, if you're dumping logs into it, not for regular use of getting data out, but more for like auditing compliance, and somebody can put a checkbox on like a ISO 27001 certification that says I've got log data and it is searchable.
Yes.
Check. I would probably go with the ELK or Graylog. Put a boatload of disk on there. Make it as redundant as you can, and don't worry about the fact that it might take days to get stuff out of it.
Thank you. That's really much it. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
So I will volunteer for our folks. If there are folks that are interested in a much more sort of thorough, long discussion and demo, I will put a step into doing that.
December would be awesome.
Okay. Hopefully I'll remember by then.
December or later, but send me an email and I'll get it on the site. So that's what I wanted to bring up as a close. So next month, IPv6 security. October, we have Docker. November, Charlie's back on building his free NAS, right? Since you're the only one here that I know of today. So yeah, we got some talks, which is awesome. If you want to do logging in December or not, but anybody also has ideas. I had a discussion on Joe seemed to be upset that I had forgotten about him, and I checked. I did not ever get an email, because I don't delete email about the specifics. So I asked him for specifics, and we got him right on here. So if you do not get an acknowledgement from me, or you do not see it added to a web page, NovaLUG.com/meetings, within a couple days of emailing me, feel free to say, hey, let's get this done, because maybe it got caught by spam and got flagged somehow, or maybe I overlooked it. But I am, I think Joe and I are good now. He said that I denied him, would not allow him to speak. I said that's a miscommunication. Never turned out any speaker. I have some speakers who have self-selected out, but I've never turned down a topic. So hopefully we're good for next month. I will send out a notice on where the location may be. We may be across the street in a new space. I do not know at this moment. And I guess that is it. So I want to appreciate everybody for sharing their knowledge and for the questions that came up today. I think it was an interesting meeting. I think hopefully everybody learned a little bit. And we will see everybody.
Can we make sure, Greg, that you can actually post to the new list? I have never seen an email come through from you on the new list. I get your post, but they only come through from Phillips. I know he doesn't like text messages, but.
No, I said.
Send a message saying the meeting is over, thank you for that.
Test completely.
No, not testing, there's no word testing in the message, right?
That's what.
This concludes the broadcast.
Yeah.
Is there anybody here who's got a System 76? I'm thinking of buying one, but I don't want to.
The guy that was sitting right here had one earlier.
Oh, no. I want to touch it before I buy it.
Make sure it's not hack pro keyboard.
Does NovaLUG need any help moving?
That is an awesome question. I do not know the answer to that.
Last month, they were talking about possibly doing a demo party, but I haven't heard anything about actually moving stuff over yet.
Jason has said he will reach out when they were ready, but he was planning to reach out.
Who's closing up today?
Who's closing up today? Me. Within the next 15 minutes.
I could imagine that the punch list is probably getting rather long for him about now, or he might just forget to ask us.
So there's no harm in sending a note to Jason. So you can look at Jason Coles, Kohles. So J. Coles at Palantir, and making that offer.
So it's a NovaLUG at firemountain.net.
I don't know if he's on the new list or not, so I can't say. So I just posted.
Not seeing it yet.
As you know, just posted a regular account. So hopefully.
I don't use Digest. I've never figured out why people use Digest on Mailman. I mean, you can't reply anything. It just seems to be a bad format.
So I'm sure he has it set so that the post is not.
But I've never, every time you post, I never see it.
Got it.
It's there.
No.
I'm sure which account you signed up with?
Peter Larson, Peter Larson. Oh, yeah, get all the other ones.
So send it. So if you're having a problem, NovaLUG-owner@firemountain.net and say, hey, we did a test at the meeting. I didn't get it from this address. I believe I'm signed up. Can you help me out? So
Fire Mountain's working because Charlie got a message on us.
Well, that's a longer.
I see it now. It came finally.
It did. Okay. So that's a longer discussion on Charlie. I'm trying to help him get set up and working with Rich to see what we can do to what we may or may not be able to do to help him.
How many people actually use the dash request, dash owner, dash in other lists?
I use them all the time.
I used to use request a lot, but I haven't.
I use request an owner for this, and I'm dealing with all the time. So, I mean, that's the proper way to do it, and that's how I've always done it. So, I haven't known to do it any other way, I guess.
Okay, well, I guess we'll stop broadcasting.
So yeah, it looks like everything is. Yeah, it looks like everything's real time, or the list is now working, which is good. And I guess that is it. I don't know if anybody is planning a lunch trip or not. I will let someone else set that up if someone is so inclined or.